Hello everyone and welcome to another video. So, with the show's 60th anniversary just a year away, many fans have been wondering just which previous Doctors will return for it. The idea of having a multi-Doctor special to celebrate a big anniversary isn't anything new, of course. Since the show's 10th anniversary back in the 1970s, we've almost always had multiple Doctors teaming up for a special story to celebrate the occasion. We've had the 3 Doctors in 1973, well, it actually started there in 1972, but never mind. The 5 Doctors in 1983, Dimensions in Time in 1993, and of course, The Day of the Doctor in 2013. But will the 60th anniversary specials continue this tradition, or has Rusty Davies decided to go with something entirely different instead? Well, it is something that we'll just have to wait until next November to find out for sure, but supposing the 60th were to have multiple past Doctors, which ones would be most likely to come back? Well, that's what I'm going to attempt to answer in this video. So, without any further ado, let's start with the classic series Doctors. 1. The classic series Doctors, Doctors 1 to 8. Unfortunately, the first 3 Doctors are sadly no longer with us, so we couldn't have William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton or Jon Pertwee return. We could maybe get David Bradley back as the first Doctor instead, with potentially new actors playing the second and third as well. However, if I'm completely honest, I'm not sure I could see Russell going ahead with this. Not that I think he wouldn't want to do it, I just can't really see him wanting to go in this direction. Also, there's another factor to consider with this. David Bradley has already returned as the first Doctor in the most recent episodes, The Power of the Doctor, so whilst he could still be in the 60th, given that he's already returned an episode or so before, it might not make much sense to have him back again so soon. And of course, he wasn't the only old Doctor to appear in The Power of the Doctor. Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann also reprised their roles as the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th Doctors respectively. And given that their appearances in the episode were so well handled and written, especially with the scenes between 5 and Tegan and 7 and Ace, I'm not so sure if I'd want to bring them back either if I was in Russell's position. Chris Chibnall did such a great job of utilising them, so why bother to even try to replicate it so soon afterwards? It wouldn't really make much sense and could even lessen the impact of their returns in The Power of the Doctor in some ways. The only surviving classic Doctor that didn't appear in The Power of the Doctor was of course the 4th Doctor, Tom Baker. So Russell could maybe bring him back for the 60th if he really wants to, and if Tom Baker was okay with it, but given that he declines to take part in The Power of the Doctor as he wasn't available, he could also decline to take part in the 60th. Besides, I don't mean this in a rude or disrespectful way, but he is getting on a bit with him being nearly in his 90s, I believe. As much as I'd love to see Tom back in the 60th, given that he's my second favourite Doctor overall, I'd much rather have him take care of himself and just take things easy personally. Also, we've already had him return in the 50th as the curator, so Tom may not see much need for him to come back for the 60th. In short, whilst it's not impossible that some might come back, namely perhaps Doctors 5 to 8, I'm not so sure how that could work when most of the surviving ones have already come back for The Power of the Doctor. So let's now turn to the new or revived series Doctors. 2. The new series Doctors, Doctors 9 to 13. Now unfortunately John Hurt has sadly passed away as well, and I can't really think of anyone who would be able to pull off playing the War Doctor, at least looks wise. Jonathan Carley does a great job of voicing a young War Doctor in the War Doctor Begins Big Finish audios, but I can't easily think of anyone who even has a passing resemblance to the late Sir John Hurt. As for the 9th Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, given the circumstances regarding his exit from the show and how that personally affected him, I don't think it would be right to even expect him to come back, and he's pretty much ruled out ever coming back, especially for a multi-Doctor story, saying on the subject when he's been asked at conventions, "I've never been a fan of multi-Doctor stories. When I worked on the series, I had really strong ideas about what works and what doesn't, and I always think that multi-Doctor stories are a bit of a cash-in and a bit of exploitation. Creatively, they never worked for me. I looked at the script for the 50th anniversary and I felt as soon as I said I wasn't doing it, it got better because, well, if I'm not in it, it's better. The creation of the War Doctor introduced a whole new facet to the canon." He's also said though of any return at all, the 9th Doctor in particular is a one-man band, definitely, so he doesn't work with other Doctors. If you want me back, you'd get me on my own. So at first you might think, maybe he might come back for his own one-off special or miniseries instead. However, it's worth remembering that one of the people he fell out with when he did the show was the show's then showrunner, Russell T Davies, who of course is once again the showrunner now. Whilst he still talks positively of Russell as a writer, there probably is still at least a little bit of bad blood there, and if he doesn't wish to work with RTD ever again, we have to accept his wishes. So I don't think it's very likely that he would ever come back to the actual show at least. Obviously, he started doing Big Finish audios and seems to be really enjoying doing that, which I'm very glad about. And he also seems to enjoy doing conventions now as well. Of course, given his comments about how he'd only return on his own, I do wonder how he'd fit in with Big Finish's plans for the 60th. I'm sure they'll do a special audio to celebrate the occasion, just like they did with the 40th and 50th anniversaries. And those normally involve multiple Doctors as well, but I guess we'll have to wait and see about that. Obviously, we already know about David Tennant. He is returning for the 60th, although this time he's playing the 14th Doctor, not the 10th. So unless we somehow see 10 and 14 interacting with each other in a very weird and confusing multi-Doctor scene, I don't think we need to look more into that. But what about the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith? Well, even though I would argue he's the most likely to come back out of all the Doctors, he's repeatedly denied that he's coming back. Not because he doesn't want to, as he's said how much he still loves the show and his time on it, and he certainly hasn't ruled out returning if he was asked to. But I'm not so sure if he is coming back, given just how many times he's denied it. I mean, sure, he could be doing an Andrew Garfield with all of this, and it's not very likely that he would say that he was coming back even if he actually was. Not even David Tennant said that he was returning initially. But he is a very busy actor at the moment, so who knows. I do really hope that he comes back, and he's definitely the one that I could see coming back the most. We now move on to the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi. He's also pretty consistently ruled out a return for his 60th, with somewhat similar reasons as Christopher Eccleston. He doesn't seem that keen on multi-Doctor stories, or at least returning for one. It's very hard to imagine how you get a decent crack of the whip when there's 14 of you, you know? So I think I'd rather leave it as it is, because I loved my time on Doctor Who, and loved doing it. And he's not that keen on returning on his own either. I love Doctor Who, I love it in all of its forms, but I've sort of done my time on it, and I like the idea that you leave it as it is, instead of constantly digging up more of it. Now again, he could just be saying this, and he is in fact still returning in some form, but I think it'd be wrong for us to get our hopes up about it. And now we move on to the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker. Now, Jodie was actually in the early stages of pregnancy when she filmed her final story, The Power of the Doctor, late last year. And while she's obviously since given birth, she's still on maternity leave at the minute, according to a Radio Times interview from last month. So she might still have been pregnant, or at least just given birth, when they were filming the 60th back in the summer earlier this year. So that does kind of make the possibility of her returning for the 60th unlikely, as she'll no doubt have wanted to do what was right for both her own and her baby's health. And there's also the fact that she's only just left the show as well. Her final story will only have been an episode or so before the 60th anniversary specials, so maybe having her come back so soon after she's just left might not be something that Russell would do. I wouldn't say it's impossible, of course, and maybe she's done a short cameo or something already. After all, she's let Russell know how much she wants to return, according to that aforementioned Radio Times interview. There's also the fugitive Dr. Jo Martin to think about too. While she could possibly come back in her own spin-off or miniseries one day, I don't think Russell will decide to have her in the 60th, given that she was a part of the whole Timeless Child story arc during the Chris Chibnall era. I can't see RTD wanting to confuse new viewers by referencing it or going back to it so heavily by bringing the fugitive Doctor back. But I'd love to see Jo Martin come back in any shape or form, as I really think that she was done a massive injustice by not being used more in the Chris Chibnall era. She's such a wonderful actor and always commanded the screen with her presence. I'm sorry if all that sounded pretty bleak and depressing in any way. That wasn't my intention at all. I just think we should maybe lower our expectations as fans and not just assume that we're always going to get a multi-Doctor story for a big anniversary. Sure, it's tradition, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen this time. I think we should just focus on enjoying the 60th anniversary specials for whatever they turn out to be, even if we only get at most 2 Doctors, i.e. David Tennant and Ncuti Gatwa, in them. So then if there aren't any more, well, at least we haven't got all our hopes up over nothing. But never say never, maybe some more will return after all. Who knows right now? Whatever Rusty Davies has planned will be great, I'm sure, and I for one can't wait until next November to find out what it is. But what do you think? Do you think we'll see any more Doctors in the 60th apart from Tennant and Ncuti? And which ones would you like to see the most? Please let me know in the comments section below. Anyway, so thanks for watching, hope you liked it. Please don't forget to press that subscribe button below, as well as press the bell icon at the side of it so that you'll stay notified of when all my new videos come out. This channel currently has 693 subscribers as of the time of writing and recording this video, but once we get 750, then I'll rank every single season of the TV show, from 1963 to the present. Also, please rate and comment below your thoughts on all of this. So, until next time, bye bye!